Good afternoon and welcome to a Rebels Radio special broadcast where we are reviewing the season just gone. I'm joined by both joint Slough Town managers. How are you, boys?
Very well.
I'm in a good mood, John.
You got a voice back at least?
I've got a voice back.
Good, which for some may be good, others may not. Let's start off by asking what's your highs of last season?
I think obviously the obvious one is the playoff final. I think we'll probably talk about that in a bit more detail further on. But the playoffs was the end of a full season's hard work, and obviously was I think we've both said it was our biggest high and best day in football. There are some other good games as well, weren't there?
Yeah, I mean the rugby game as well. I mean that was another big win. But I mean, for myself personally, probably my biggest highlight this season was Barton Rovers away, winning 2-1 on a Thursday night when we had loads of traffic and whatever else, and putting a great performance. And for me, that was probably up there.
I think also back at the start of the season, the 4-0 at Rugby came when we were having a bad start or an indifferent start, and it was obviously a big game, and Eddie obviously had a great day that day, got all four, and I think that gave us the belief we could beat anyone in the league that day.
Yeah, and also I think on that day Eddie introduced himself to the lads that we brought over, because I don't think at that time that they'd actually seen a lot of him, because he hadn't had a prolific pre-season or anything like that, and I think that sort of alerted everyone that actually this lad can score goals as well. So yeah, that was a great day as well.
And on the converse side, what were your lows?
Well, I mean there was a few early on. Funny enough, one of my lowest moments was actually in the Merthyr game. Even though the FA Trophy probably isn't the biggest priority of the season, it was probably the lowest moment. Having gone 1-0 up and then being pegged back to 1-1, and then for us to have a penalty with sort of 5-6 minutes to go, and then have two players sent off, you're thinking, we're going to win the game, and to miss the penalty and then to concede against 9 men was a low point for me.
Yeah, the one that sticks out for me is probably Beaconsfield at Christmas. Obviously, we had a pretty terrible December, but that Beaconsfield game, especially the second half, we absolutely capitulated second half. We defensively we looked terrible. We looked short of confidence, and that was probably the game that really prompted us to start making changes to the squad. Obviously we already had it in mind, but that was so poor, that second half, that you look at how we were at the end of the season. It was a million miles away from that performance.
I think at the same time, I mean, I'm sure we'll probably mention it, but I mean, Psychob on that day were excellent, but we had nothing about us that that day. Really, no. It was a poor day, and being Boxing Day as well. I think we both went home, after the Christmas period, and I think we were both very down in the car on the way home.
Moving on to more positive things, what was your best performance this season?
Best performance for me was funnily enough at Potter's Bar away. We turned up, we weren't sure the game was going to be on, the pitch was really, really wet. Their ground staff had done a fantastic job to get the game on, and we went and beat them 3-0, and I have to say, on the day, on a really, really tough pitch, I thought our intensity, our work rate all over the pitch, our quality was absolutely fantastic, and for me that was one of the most satisfying performances.
And what about the worst?
Yeah, we had a couple of a few disappointing defeats through the season. I think probably for me, Leighton away, they scored late on to nick it, but to be honest, we deserved nothing from the game.
Awful, weren't they?
Yeah, we were flat. We didn't create anything. It was a pretty low point.
Yeah. I mean, it was it was one of those days where you come away and you're thinking, what have we got to do to get it right?
Yeah.
Over the course of the season, you obviously come up against a whole raft of teams. Which of them impressed you most?
Well, Bakes mentioned Beaconsfield. They did the double over us. Got to say, in those two games, they completely outplayed us. Whether they raised themselves because it was the local derby against Slough, maybe. We saw them at other times in the season where they played well. We saw him at other times when they didn't play so well. If you purely judged it on 2 games against us, I think they were definitely the best side.
Yeah. Also rugby at our place. I mean, on the day, they absolutely tore us to pieces. I thought they were excellent. I mean, I know the game only finished 2-1, but we both come off. Sometimes when you come off after a game of football and you've been beaten, and we were beaten that day, and I think that was probably one of the reasons why we went into the playoffs a little bit fearful of what they could possibly do to us. But obviously, the rest is history. But on the day, I thought they were excellent.
And looking back all the way to the beginning of the season, how were the expectations at Slough for you both?
Well, I mean, from our point of view, our expectations were we wanted to get in the playoffs. To be honest, I think coming in new and obviously making a lot of changes. Of course, you go into any season wanting to win the league, but realistically, if we could have got in the playoffs, we'd have taken that. And there were several stages throughout the season where that didn't look like it was going to happen. But we kind of knew always if you get that 5th spot, it really makes no odds whether you're 2nd or 5th, and that was always the aim. And obviously we got there. I mean, as far as the supporters are concerned, I think again they had different expectations through the season.
I mean, like from my point of view, and I know John won't mind me saying, I mean, we at the start of the season when we sat down with Steve, we expected to get in the playoffs. There was from our point of view, we expected to get into the playoffs. I don't believe the way we started the season was how we were expecting to start. I think that we possibly underestimated the change from leaving Godalming to go into Slough, and having the fan base that they do, and everything that changed. I think we underestimated that a little bit, and as I said, come Christmas we were not convinced that we weren't going to get in the playoffs, but we were thinking that it's going to be very, very tough to get in the playoffs. So we set our expectations high every season, and this season was no different, but at various points it did change a little bit.
You mentioned during that, obviously, Steve, how is your relationship with the chairman? How's it been through the season? What have you learnt about one another?
Well, I think from the first moment we met Steve, we sat down with him at a place local to us, and he's just a top man. You can't have too many fantastic words to say about him, because he's just such a top guy. What he's done for the club, how he's been with us has been brilliant. He's just made our life nice and easy.
Yeah, he seemed to know the times when we needed picking up. I know when we got knocked out of the FA Cup, I think we've mentioned this before, but we were worried about what the chairman would say to us, because obviously it's a source of income for the club, and all he was worried about was how we were feeling, and he was really positive. We saw him outside the changing room, and he was really positive, and then again. Around the December time, when we were having a bad time of it, he put a statement out which talked about the tough time we're having and the injuries, and basically backed us. And he didn't tell us he was going to do it. We weren't expecting it. He didn't need to do it, but he thought that it was the right thing to do, and that gave us. As we went through the second half of the season, we wanted. It sounds a bit corny, but we wanted to do it for him, because when someone shows that much faith in you. Right the way throughout. I know a lot of people did at different stages, but he's one who did it right from the word go, and we're just really pleased we could repay him.
And the scenes at Kettering with him on the pitch, and I think there's a great photo of Summers lifting him up completely unaware, and him celebrating. I mean, he's waited a long time for that, and we're just delighted that we could have done that for him, because as I say, I've got nothing but good words to say about Steve.
Who else around the club? Obviously, you two are the faces of the management team. There's a lot of backroom staff. Who else has been around to help you this season?
We've got a really good management team. I mean, we brought in Trent as goalkeeping coach, someone that I knew from the past, but I wouldn't say
first time I met.
Yeah,
first time I
Bakes
met
didn't
Trent.
know him. We needed a goalkeeping coach, and he came down, and with on the basis we'd see how it went, and he just fitted in straight away. He's a positive guy around the place. He does things the right way. He's very professional when he needs to be. He has a laugh when he needs to, He's a really good, important part of the changing room, and you know, we could sit here all day talking about Kev McGoldrick. Everyone knows how good he is. He's a very, very good physio. He's very committed, very professional, and he's just a lovely, lovely man as well.
Yeah, yeah. And then you've got, you know, obviously, you know, Mark Betts come into the sort of fold towards the end as well. You know, well, I should say sort of probably a couple of months after the season started, and you know, we get on really, really well with Mark, and you know, he just in and around the changing room helps do little things, and you know, if we need to bounce anything off him, we do. You know, he's helped me out a few times, and John out a couple of times when either of us haven't been there. But you know, and what that also does is, you know, with him, with the youth section and whatever else, it just brings those sort of things a little bit closer. So you know, so he's been a good addition, and then you've got somebody like Mark Hunter, who, you know, just does everything for us. You know, the kit's ready, the sweets are out, the drinks are out, and just makes our life easier. So you know, there's lots of people. I think we mentioned quite a few at the end of season awards. You know, like the Gary House and etc. etc. You know, but yeah, I mean, we've got a really good backroom team. You know, and we're absolutely delighted with it, to be honest.
And the same to be said for the club staff that obviously help out, the secretary, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some great people around the club, and make our life nice and easy. And yeah, you know, only good words to be said, to be honest.
What's been your biggest learning during this last season, as managers, maybe individual? I don't know.
I think we learned a lot about the squad as we went through the season. I think we came across from Godalming where we'd obviously got in the playoffs 2 years running, and for us it seemed, well, you know, we bring the players that we know, the players that we trust, and we had some quality. There was quality players already at Slough, and you know, we didn't think, and we never thought it was going to be easy, but we thought that squad would definitely be good enough, and it didn't work for everybody. Not everybody hit the ground running, and I think we learned that no matter how good you think you are, you know, you can always improve, and if things aren't going well, you need to be able to make big decisions, and you know, we never make snap decisions. You know, we talk them through. We over talk them sometimes, but you know, we'd like to. I think, you know,
we make some big
without
decisions.
singing our praises too much, I think we got our decisions right this season. I think that got, you know, that was proved by the way we ended the season and where we are now. But there were some really tough decisions to make throughout the season, and I think we just learned, you know, more than ever, you just got to go with your gut feel. If it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right. And no, I mean, we're delighted with how it went from our point of view. From that point of view,
What was the biggest surprise this season?
December. Simple as that. I mean, you know, I think myself and John have had a good squad of players for a while now, and I don't think either of us ever envisaged us losing 5 games in 6. You know, to lose 2 games on a bounce was a bit of a crisis for us normally, and to lose 5 in 6 was a massive surprise.
Talking about opposition, where's the best ground you visited?
I'd have to say Rugby.
Yeah,
you know, when we turned up for the, I mean, obviously we've been there a few times, and in fact it's a lucky ground for us as well. We've had some really good wins there, but yeah, when we turned up for the semi-final, and you know, it just reminds you what a good place to play your football it is. It's a proper non-league ground, and the pitch is decent as well. So yeah, I'd have to say Rugby.
Any other places that we had the pitch you thought, yeah, we like it here, we can play football?
Uxbridge. Uxbridge is always really, really good. Pitches top draw there, and you know, nice big changing rooms, and I quite like going to Uxbridge. It's nice and local as well. So yeah.
Yeah. Talking of opposition, who were your best opposition players? Who did you really rate that you came up against?
I mean, there's a few. I mean, Lake Gaskin's one for me.
Yeah.
You know, he's every time we've seen him,
he won quite a few of the awards at Rugby.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, he's a nice player. He works hard. Obviously, he scores a lot of goals and everything like that. You know, out of the two, out of him and Kolodinsky, you know, I'd rather have a Lake Gaskin in my side than a Kolodinsky. You know, because he works for the team, and you know, he still comes up with the goals. Granted, not as many as Kolodinsky, but I think probably if you ask the majority of the Rugby players, they'd probably put Lake Gaskin in their side over Kolodinsky.
Yeah, I mean, we liked Ross Alton at Daventry. I think he's a class player. Stood out for them. Most times we saw him, he stood out. And I think when we went up there, he was on the bench, so we were well happy with that. But then he came on and made a difference when he came on. Yeah, he's a good player.
Very good player. And also Roach at Dunstable. He's another player we've seen a few times. Who's very very tricky and he's obviously scored a lot of goals last year. I know he had a couple of issues. I think he got sent off a few times, but he was one that he could cause problems.
Your management style is one of openness and kind of commenting and getting involved with the fans. How have you found engagement with the fans this year?
Yeah, we try and do that as much as we can. We know that the supporters enjoy it and they like to hear what's going on. I think we probably, in terms of the forum, the fans forum, we probably overdid it a little bit, if I'm honest, early on. That was probably a learning for us. We tried to be really open and honest. I think there was probably a few people. Yeah, but there was a few people on there early on who had a bit of an agenda, who didn't really want us to do well. And if I'm honest, we had a few bites on there when people said things, and we waded in and more often than not, it was defending our players.
Yeah.
Standing up for our players, which we always do. But there's a way of doing it, and I think we took a step back from it and decided we weren't going to get involved in talking about performances and players, and we've tried to carry on by giving information and letting supporters know, which I think is probably what our role should be on there, rather than getting into debates about who's played well, who's struggling, because that's you just open a can of worms when you do that.
I think and not being funny, since we've been doing these interviews as well, it makes a massive difference because it enables us to get over our thoughts, on the games, and without things being twisted, because sometimes that can happen. On a forum, when you're writing something, people can sort of sit there and think, what does he mean by that? Whereas when you're talking about it, you can sort of get over your point, and I think these have been invaluable to us, and I think to the fans, and even like the players. Players like to listen to these things as well, so I think they've been really good as well.
Talking of the players, who's got the best banter? What's the atmosphere like in the changing room?
Changing room for me is the best I've been involved in. The lads really get on. They've got a lot of respect for each other as players, but they're mates as well, first and foremost. And and in terms of individuals,
Clergy's probably one of the ringleaders in the changing room. He's involved in everything. He's like you can't describe him. He's one of those guys, Clergy. He's one of the nicest guys you'll meet. He'll do anything for anyone in our team. But he's such a funny lad as well, and he's brilliant. He helps knit the change room, as do others. People like your Fowsers and there's many leaders in our change room. I mean, even somebody like a Johnny Dyer. I think Johnny's a very different character to Clergy, but he's brilliant around the changing room. And
if he comes in on a Saturday in a good mood, the changing room's in a good mood.
Yeah,
he's just one of those infectious sort of personalities.
But there's so many in that changing room. Obviously you always have one or two that sort of aren't at the forefront of everything, but they're all involved. Which is great. And
the good thing is, when we have a night out, everybody goes out. And people. It's not because they feel they have to; it's because they want to. Even the quieter lads will come out. Those that have got families, people make the effort, and that's not always the case at football. I've been at clubs where it's not been like that.
Normally if you go and night out and you get 10 people out on a night out, that's a good night out. I mean, when we're doing it, you're talking sort of 18, 19, 20 people. I think we've got sort of 18, 19 of us going to Portugal in 2 weeks' time, which is fantastic. They've all paid their flights and they want to go on holiday with their teammates. And that's a big thing.
There must be some funny moments as well. What's some of the funniest you've had this season?
We've had a few on the bench actually with Trent, who seems to have a habit of breaking his seat in the bench and falling off it. So I'm hoping he's lost a little bit of weight for Portugal, because I don't want to be sitting next to him round the pool. But
breaking his hand.
Yeah, exactly. But there's been plenty of funny moments, to be honest, and that sort of humour is normally funniest when you're involved in the changing room. We'd probably tell you a few stories and they wouldn't be in the slightest bit funny.
No.
But
that's not annoying you, eh? Not being funny. Let's just have some. I know we're going on a bit, so let's just have some quick old answers now. Match of the season.
Final, Kettering away.
Yeah.
Gripe of the season.
Funny enough, probably when we actually got promoted, some of our managers that we were competing with didn't get in, no text messages or anything like that. I think.
Okay, we said be quick. Goal of the season.
For me, Clergy from the halfway line.
George for me, Chertsey, but Clergy. There's not a lot to choose from, but George's was fantastic.
Comical goal of the season.
Marlowe's goal with Max Oschmitz in goal, where he's gone to kick the ball and it's bobbled over his foot.
Signing of the season.
I think we've got to mention Rummy. I think Rummy came in and changed the season for us. Helped change the season for us in January.
Yeah.
One to watch for next year.
For me, I mean, there's loads, but Johnny Dyer, I think, is going to have a really, really good season next year. I think he ended it brilliantly, and I know he's absolutely bang up for it. And if it wasn't for a few injuries and illnesses this year, he could have got a lot more goals. And I've got a really good feeling about Johnny.
And sum up the season in 3 words.
3 words. Okay. One for our boys. This. Get up.
Wallop.
All right. Okay. Well, let's hope that next season we can teach Bakes how to do a short answer. That's it. Thank you ever so much for your time, guys, and I'm sure we'll be speaking again soon.
No worries.
Cheers.